Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Social Confoes. My name is Diego, together with my co-host Jean-Luc. Welcome back to episode 78. And Jean-Luc, I got a confession to make. I was
I'm
going through the
listening.
old episodes, and we actually skipped episode 72.
We skipped episode 72.
Yeah, in the numbering system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I guess that will be a hidden episode. Yeah,
so
when we release episode 100, we'll release episode 72. It's a secret hidden episode. Yeah, for people that are tuning in now, you're the first to hear it. There will be a secret episode, number 72. So when we reach 100 episodes, look out for it. 100
yeah,
episodes also means that we will be at 2 years of social confoes. So this is pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually just quick update from my end. I finally got the workflow through of all the previous episodes that still need to be published. So most of them have gone through the first phase. So now it's just going through them. If all is well, I should have all of them done by the end of this weekend, and then we should be
Just
on
gradually push
schedule
them
again.
along. Just
Yeah.
gradually push them. They're like there's no pressure. So we were briefly discussing my studio, and please put this in quotation marks. My studio
Studio.
setup, my studio setup current. I actually like this kind of minimalistic setup. There's like one main light that gives like a little bit of an extra dimension, that there's actually some backlight, which I kind of like. It's very black and white. There's not too much contrast. I'm actually enjoying this setup. So
That's
that's why
actually
I'm not
nice.
changing.
Should put a
That
black and white filter on your video.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy setup. I should watch out if I come too close. It might collide a little bit, or it will be a little bit too much light coming in from the front. But in general, I kind of like the setup, and you'll see in earlier episodes either there was a backdrop, or I would have headphones and a mic. I kind of skipped that for now, just because the PC, the MacBook that I'm using is already, I think, 6 years old, and it was
So
already a couple of years old before I bought it. So I feel like it doesn't optimize quite as much. So yeah, I have to do a studio renovation, or actually upgrade, and I have to upgrade my laptop at a certain point as well.
if we're looking at talking setup for you priority, which one was the first thing you want to resolve to up
The, f-
the
the first thing I want to do is finish my
yeah.
book. So
Okay.
to be clear, there's like one main priority in this year. Like there are many others. Like we can talk like taking the next step with our business with Ineffable. We can talk about the social media conference that is coming back to a physical conference this year. We can talk about me getting more involved with the family business. We can talk about other projects that I'm doing on the side. But the main thing for me this year is putting out a book.
Yeah, let's zoom in on that for a second. The book. So I think a few months now, you publicly, announced that you're writing a book, and it's a big project. You got a list after the social media world, marketing world in San Diego, kind of had the outline ready for the book. So give us a quick status update on where you're at with the book, and then we'll go from there.
So to be completely transparent, I signed in San Diego with a self-publishing school, and the self-publishing school has been helping me with the process of getting the book published. So I do actually get some coaching. I'm in certain groups, like for instance, today we were in a writing room, and that really helps me out because you're there with other writers. So actually,
What?
Yeah.
What's that look like when you say coaching with other writers? What do people not understand, or what should people expect when you're writing a book and you're being coached? What do people not see in the writing process that you think it's important to know?
Okay, first of all, I think people like, especially non-writers like myself, like there are people out there who have written books, are writers, and it's their second, third, fourth book, or they had been blogging for years. Or so for them, it's kind of different because it's a different approach. But for first-time writers, I think one of the most difficult things is just getting starting to write. Like we're talking about around 30,000 words minimum, and 30,000 words minimum is not that much if you like, or if you're consistent, but it is a lot to write on a topic, on a subject. So I think that's one of the things that gets underestimated a lot. And then the writing room is really a room that you get in with other writers. At the beginning of the writing room, you say like, "Hey, this is my goal for today." Everybody turns their sound and camera off, and you just start writing. But it's just to make sure that you're actually committed to actually writing in that block, that time block that you kind of reserve specifically for writing. And then afterwards, of course, you kind of tune back in and say how it went, and you kind of share stories. And it's good because for instance, I have certain struggles which other writers are now saying like, oh yeah, that we've been through that, or we're having a similar experience at the moment. And that kind of, it makes it, you're not alone anymore. Whereas when you're writing alone, it's like if you get into a writer's block, whenever you get stuck, if the structure doesn't work, you're on your own. Whereas now you're kind of in a group. I wouldn't call it a mastermind necessarily, but there is kind of this
Oh,
support
a
system that,
focused like work group, like
yeah. And then you have
you
the
see other people actually writing.
yeah, you see, now we turn our cameras off,
Okay.
but that's the gist of it. But the personal coaching is on a whole nother, that's a different level. That's really like somebody who's experienced, who has coached like at least 100 books, and they kind of give you some insights into, okay, what are the things that they keep you on the right path. And putting you on the right path is more about asking the right questions, and it's kind of a therapy therapy session
Therapy session.
where I
Okay, okay.
where I kind of like, this is happening, and my coach does a really good job listening, and then really specific questions and things
Like
that
what was a question
motivate
that kind of motivated or confronted you to really think deeply about going
well,
into it?
that's the good thing about it. Like, I only recently I've really started picking up the writing again. So for today, I wrote 1,171 words. And
Okay.
1,100 words, almost 1,200 words, that's the most I've written in a day. Like, at
Okay,
least
that's
for the
good.
book. It's yeah, it's a really nice piece. It was also about social media, which is my core, which made it a little bit easier, because that section of the book is kind of like, it's 10 years of knowledge just dripping out, whereas other parts I still have to like, I have to fact check if what I'm saying is actually correct. This part is like all from practical experience, so very very different process. But over the past months, the unplanned trip to Cuba, um, getting back in the rhythm, catching up with work, so it kind of started sliding back down. And the accountability of that, having a coach, like, means like before I have the session, I'm already okay. Like, what am I going to do that I don't screw up? As in, try to be in at least two writing rooms a week, making sure that I commit to actually writing daily. And since I've been doing that, I actually had a streak of 6 days straight writing last week, and then I broke it in the weekend. So now I have to figure out how do I keep writing in the weekend as well, that, that my streak doesn't get broken. But what my
So,
coach helped me with is accepting the fact like, hey, listen, you run a full-time business. So whenever you run a full-time business, the writing a book is always on the priority list, is always going to be at the bottom. Like, unless you put it at the top, like, say, listen, I'm not available in this time frame and that time frame of the day, unless you put it on at the top, I mean, you're stuck.
So just wink or give me a sign if you're still there. I just lost your video, I think.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was purposefully. That
Okay.
was on purpose. Yeah, so so I think one of the things that uh really is like he didn't say to me like, listen, if you don't take it serious, you're gonna fail. But he made sure that I was aware, like, if I don't make it a priority myself, I mean, at the end of the day, it's my book. I want to have it published by this year.
Yeah.
Nobody else is pressuring me to publish it by this year. I just know if I'm gonna postpone it to 2023, the book might never get finished.
So how far in are you say like is the minimum 30,000 world? That's the 30,000 words. That's
No,
the
it's not.
minimum,
It's not. It's not.
or like how is that classified?
I
Uh,
mean, like, you have different letter sizes, letter type sizes. So I mean, you can cheat around a little bit with it as well. So I wouldn't say specifically like, hey, that's what you should do. I want to have a rough draft of around 25 to 30,000 words. I still want to do a lot of interviews to kind of go a little bit more in depth into certain things that I'm
how did you
thinking
come up
about.
to that number? Like, did you decide on that?
Now that's something we discussed, which I discussed with my coach. What is
Mm.
like a 150-page book? What would that be? How many words would that be? And I came around 30,000 at least, and I think I'm around 13,000, 14,000 now.
So around 40%, 40%.
Well, I think the rough draft is going to be 25,000.
Yeah.
So I think I'm already over 50%, and half of what I've written over the last 10 days. So I'm in a pretty good flow. I want to have the rough draft done by the end of August, and I did have to change my structure a little bit. And the main concern that I have now is if the writing styles of the first part of the book and the second part of the book match. But that's something that you shouldn't be taking into consideration in your rough draft. In your rough
Yeah.
draft, you just have to write. So at this moment, I'm just saying like I have to finish by the end of August because that gives me another month to really dive back into the material and say like I want to write things differently. Then the real coaching starts, by the way, because then I'm actually going to learn how to self-edit because I've never self-edited my own writing before. I mean,
Okay.
I don't even screen for typos and grammar, those kind of things. So that will be something new for me as well.
So I know like the process. You have a writer, you have editors, you have what does editing entail, and how would this like if you have, would have external editors, why approach it from self-editing? How does that work, or why was this approach suggested?
Okay, so to be honest, I'm not sure yet. I think what the biggest difference is that like right now I'm just writing, getting as many words in as possible, writing everything I know about a topic, and then you're gonna self-edit. Then you're gonna see like does the actually the narrative flow? Like is there an actual narrative? Does the narrative work? How do I fit the narrative? So one of the things that you're constantly with is like there's certain subchapters where I can't seem to figure out while after I'm writing, I'm like, should I switch them? Should this chapter or subchapter become before the other one? Why not? And those are kind of things that you're gonna do in your self edit. Say like, hey, the flow of the book will be better if a certain subchapter comes first, then the other. What do you introduce when? What is the style that you're going to use? You want a book to be a little bit personal and not like this heavy kind of written text. And that's also where it becomes really difficult for me because I do have a creative writing style, which I might get into a little bit, but I also have kind of the academic writing style.
Hmm.
So I switch between creative writing and academic writing.
Okay.
And academic writing, it just doesn't work. It's like really boring text. And there are some segments which are like I even go into
Give
my
us a
master's
sentence
thesis.
on creative, when you say creative stuff.
No,
Or
creative is it's just my blog posts are fun things that I like to write about.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the academic is more like I dive a little bit into Michel Foucault and Heterotopias, which is like really this uh, it's like a rabbit hole. If you really go into that, you can get really get lost into philosophy, like philosophy on the self, philosophy on belonging,
Okay.
on spaces. It becomes a real rabbit hole. So I try to avoid it as much as possible, but I do also take into consideration my background. Like I've studied leisure studies. Like we joke around, like
As a
you
social
study,
scientist, right?
yeah, you study leisure studies, so you know how to go about with your spare time. Yeah, but also I also approach leisure or leisure as from a scientific perspective. So I actually feel like how you spend your time on social media as part of of
Mhm.
social science. So I do feel like I should at least incorporate that some way or another. And the same goes with I'm pretty much a believer in using your own DNA. So I come from a school of thought where the DNA of the city decides on how you should develop your city. So it's nice to say like, yeah, Paramaribo should be this really great city, and we should have this and that, and we kind of want to be like Dubai or something like that, whereas the dynamics of the city don't match. I think we went into this with Rajiv a little bit when he asked me like, based on the DNA from the different Surinamese districts, how would you build Suriname? Kind of that narrative, saying like, hey, when a certain city or a district has a certain style of industry in place, you should build your city around that industry and not try to be another city or something else because you don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Same goes with same goes with companies. Like a lot of companies are like, yeah, we want to be that kind of company or that kind of company, but they don't have the resources to do that actually. So I dive into that as well from a social media and an online marketing perspective that like you have a certain DNA as a company and like you can try to cheat the system to use the internet or to use social media for your branding to be perceived as different, but in the end, it's still going to be your DNA. So people that know you well, your customers, they're there because they like your product or your service or they like you. So it doesn't matter how you try to portray yourself online. Eventually, people are going to get to the center of it, and if they don't like it, they're just going to leave. So I do want to dive into that a little bit,
Before we
but I don't
sidetrack
want to
into
go too in depth on that.
Yeah, before we sidetrack into the DNA part, I do want to bring back up. I also remember, was it last year? You also started on Hive writing different blog post chapters that would compile into a book. So I'm kind of thinking back now, how much of that content is
Ah, yeah. Okay.
applicable to this book, or like what happened to that?
So let's first jump into to Marlon saying he uses Wattpad. So I like when it comes to business, I when it comes to business training, I write on Evernote. But I currently don't. I just write in a Word
And
document at the moment. Yeah, I use Evernote most of the
Mm.
time, but at the moment I'm just writing in a Word document. And for the community part, I use Hive. Marlon, the reason I use Hive is because you get upvoted and you actually earn from writing as well. So the question that Diego you're asking is, I've written at least 10 chapters on the history of the internet. Um, Rajiv, to be honest, not just the book NFT. The book might come with an NFT, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves because if there's no book, there's no NFT. So the NFT comes after the book
We
is
need to
finished.
write the book first.
Yeah. So first the book. The book has to be finished, and then we'll talk about the NFT. I might actually need some help as well. But I've participated in I think like three uh, writing. writing challenges is writing challenge months. I don't know, the national blog posting month. I think the national blog posting month on Hive. I've joined, I think, 3 times already, and the longest I've managed to go was 2 weeks. But one of the times that I joined, I started writing about the history of the internet, and of those articles, there is some one or two articles that I actually blog posts that are actually incorporated in the book, but not all 14. I think most of it, because I don't want to write a book about the history of the internet, because that's not my strong suit. I do want to incorporate the history of social media into the book, just so people have a general understanding of where we came from. I also do talk about the power struggle between Google and Facebook, or Alphabet and Meta, if you want to call them by their official names. And um, so I do feel like that's an interesting topic to touch upon. So I have incorporated it in the book.
Okay, so if you guys are interested in getting a teaser, which two chapters are those? Do you know the chapter numbers to refer people to your Hive blog post?
Yeah,
Um,
I think the one it's I think I have to go into, so there's definitely one that goes into Web 2.0, like the beginning of Web 2.0, how we started with Wikipedia. Wikipedia being kind of like the first website where people who are users, people who are visitors to the website, actually got to put in content into the website. So I think that's one of the first, and it wasn't really called Web 2.0, but that made the transition possible from blogging, like where the website Web 1.0, where you had the website was owned by a company or by a
yeah,
person
that's what
person
one-way
and
traffic.
they would put the content on it, and we went to from that to a website where everybody that visits is also allowed to put content on it, and that basically is the starting point for social media. So without Web 2.0, there would be no social media,
Right.
and I think that's the part that I felt like it had to be in the book.
Okay. So Hive.com, Pete Shanduk.sr,
Don't, yeah, peak dot or hive.blog. Hive.com will take you
Hive.com.
somewhere else.
Uh,
Hive.com will take you somewhere else.
Right, we
Yeah,
need to get this URL straight.
yeah,
But circling back to yeah that on DNA. But before we go into that, the GFAS, thanks for sharing your writing a book journey. So how do you deal with writer's block? You already mentioned you have the coach and there's these writing sessions.
yeah.
But is there anything else that
So I don't really have a writer's block in the sense that I pretty much know what I want to write about. Everything is already kind of in the back of my head. Where I do have a challenge is when I want to talk about something that is not my core. Like something like talking about the social media dream team. I mean, I kind of in the past month there are at least 3 companies that I've had strategic sessions with where I talk about the social media dream team. So that subchapter is kind of free flowing in itself. It's just I just say what I would say at a strategic session, and I just write it down on paper. I mean, that's easy. But then it gets more difficult, as in transitioning in from decentralization to Web3, and how Tencent and ByteDance, Tencent being the company that owns the 3 biggest or 3 of the 4 biggest social media platforms or messengers in China, of which one is WeChat, and then I think QQ and one more. So how Tencent and ByteDance is the owner of Douyin and of TikTok, how they kind of infiltrated in the imperium which was previously the Google Facebook imperium. Like there was no competition. TikTok now at the moment is already over one billion users, which is massive. There,
and that's active.
Twitter, yeah, active users. Twitter was never there. LinkedIn was never there. Pinterest was never there. Snapchat was never there. So all of a sudden, there's this competitor that there wasn't there before, and you do have to put that in the book somehow. and then you have to somehow transition the storyline to Web3, because one of the interesting parts is that when we came to the
I need to
internet.
pause you for a second because you just mentioned the dream team. How does that like
No, no, no. So the dream team is something else. The dream team
oh
is
it's
like the team you need to have when you're gonna do social media marketing. This is the team you're gonna need. So that's the easy thing to write. The hard thing to write is how do I transition from the storyline of China becoming a player, or at least Chinese companies becoming a major player in the international social media and internet marketing, and how that translates to Web3. Because just remember, when the internet started to take off in the early 90s, there was a lot of conversation about creating nationalized internet streams. So, nationalized internet being the US would have their own internet, Italy would have their own internet, Germany would have their own internet,
yeah.
and your internet access would be based on the nation where you live in. In other words, your government would decide for you which website you could visit and which website you couldn't visit. To a certain point, it's still there, but it led to Tim Berners-Lee with a web the www
Yeah, the open
the
protocol,
triple
right?
yeah the open protocol, the World Wide Web protocol, which means that all the websites on the internet are based on the same code. So uh, if it wasn't for that code or for the World Wide Web introduction, our governments would decide for us which websites we would visit, which for most of the world is no longer the case, but for China, it still is. Like, I think there's one city in China where it's legally allowed to use Facebook for tourists, but not actually for people living there.
So uh okay, we're mentioning China now. Like
Yeah.
is Hong Kong because clarify that for me, is Hong Kong still
Oh, you
independent
don't
or
want to,
open?
you don't even want to go into Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, China. That's completely different
Yeah,
story. I don't want.
Taiwan is totally separate, but the Hong Kong situation is has it been totally taken over like
Well,
with the censorship
no.
and
So
everything.
so here's the thing. And yeah, when you watch too much YouTube, you know these kind of things. So um, there
Yeah,
was
I'm
like
with you.
a treaty. No, there was a treaty between China and Hong Kong, which was based off the UK. So the UK had a treaty where Hong Kong would be independent for 100 more years, and I think that the treaty of 100 years expired recently. And there's a very interesting political system on how the parliament gets voted in Hong Kong. And let's just say it's not a fair system. So if all the people you have you have people that get voted in through the public, and you get people that are voted in through the private sector.
So
And
in other words, Hong Kong was still an independent state
it was independent
within
because
the
there was a
country of
treaty. I
China,
don't know the exact treaty or what the treaty was about, but it was a treaty with the
which
UK
which still
where
gave
Hong
them
Kong.
access to Western media and such.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
And China has a one China policy where they're now saying like, hey, the treaty is done. It's officially over. So Hong Kong now is officially part of China. And the system, the parliament system, voting system is also kind of rigged, because even if if the the public votes 100%, they cannot get the majority of the seats in the parliament. So there's I think there's something I again, it's just a
Yeah,
YouTube video. I don't know actually what the full story
yeah,
is behind
yeah.
it. Yeah.
We got some rough knowledge though about it,
Yeah.
but coming back
It's
to
not really knowledge. I wouldn't call it. I definitely would not call it research.
yeah, we heard
Yeah.
stuff.
We've heard stuff.
But bringing that back into the context of the topic you're writing about and that TikTok taking over, like being owned by a Chinese company and infiltrating like the rest of the world market. Um, yeah, how do you further look into that?
It's really interesting. And like, so we did a music video. We produced a music video for Tali, Surinamese. Well, she's an international artist from Surinamese origin, and her last music video, or I think she already released another one as well. But we got to shoot one of her music videos in Suriname, and now there's a campaign by McDonald's Suriname, so McDonald's Suriname. There's a campaign going, a TikTok dance campaign going at the moment. And the interesting thing about the campaign is McDonald's Suriname is verified on TikTok. And I mean, it's been verified from the beginning. So when
I
the
was about to ask,
account
did
was,
they get the
huh?
verification? How easy was it to get that verification for them? You
I'm not sure. I don't know. And if I knew, I wouldn't be able to disclose the information. I just know the TikTok account was verified from the start, that when it became public, it was verified, but it's McDonald's. So, I mean, like if another, like a
local
local company
franchise.
would reach out to TikTok, most likely, I mean, we can try now. We can say like, hey, could we get fair? But most likely no. Um, but it really, like, on the comments of the first TikTok they posted, it was like people going crazy over the fact that, oh my god, it's verified. How can it be verified with less than 200 followers? How can it this? How can it that? And um, I'm still learning on when it comes to TikTok. And the main thing that interests me about TikTok is TikTok is slowly transitioning in from this niche-based platform where you really had to be able to make certain kind of content to just a general video content platform. Whereas it's not just dance videos and comedy that get posted on TikTok, but it's actually any kind of the content gets posted there as well. Because of the high organic reach that it has, like a lot of companies, a lot of people just are using it by saying like, "Hey, I can post this video on Facebook, and I will get like 3 people to 5 people responding, or I can post it on TikTok where I can get like 10 to 20 to 100 people responding."
Could you elaborate on that? How TikTok still maintains that high organic reach compared to something like Instagram and Facebook?
Okay, so let's start with not necessarily early Facebook, but early international Facebook. So let's take Facebook around 2011, 2012. Yes, so Facebook around 2011, 2012, people were just getting aware of Facebook. Like maybe a third of the people that are on it now were on it. So there were a lot of people that heard about it, but they weren't active. So it was really easy to grow on Facebook in 2011, 2012. Especially,
But
especially, yeah.
that's also a different like demographic, like the whole Web2 social
No,
space.
no, 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 no. But at that moment
But
in
yeah, so
2012, in
you're right.
2012, in 2012, Suriname had one of the highest percentages of teenagers on Facebook. So you have to understand that in 2012, like 15% of the users on Facebook was under the age of 18 in Suriname. Like people forget that. Now it's less than 10%. So at the time, it was Facebook was pretty much also for teenagers. There were also teenagers on Facebook, a lot. But as the demographic changed and older people got on it, they went and looked for new platforms. But in the beginning, it was pretty much also teenage based. And it was really easy to grow on Facebook, especially if you were advertising, because now everybody is advertising. Now Facebook is really pushing. But if you would advertise for $1 a day on Facebook in 2011, 2012, within a year, you would have like 40,000 followers. Now, there's a difference between having those 40,000 followers and actually getting engagement when you post, because a lot of people who were active on Facebook in 2011, 2012 are no longer active. So they still count as your followers in 2022,
Boomers.
but they won't see your post. So that's also something. But at least it was really easy to grow on Facebook. And then came Instagram. So I think Instagram peaked around 2017, 2018 in Suriname, where it was really easy to grow on Instagram compared to Facebook because Facebook was maturing and Instagram was this up and coming platform. And if you would be consistent and post it on a daily basis, you could also pretty much grow. And if you would advertise on Instagram for $1, like in the early stages, oh man, you get a lot of interaction, like really a lot of interaction.
So is it
And and now getting to TikTok, it's kind of TikTok now is kind of in the stage of 2000 maybe 17 Instagram, 2013 Facebook. And then what you have to imagine, why is it the organic the organic reach better? So on Facebook, anybody can post. Like you can just say, I like social confoes, and that's a Facebook post. You can just literally go to Facebook, you can write, I like social confoes, you post it, and it's done. And somebody else can go, I don't like social confoes. And they already post and they're done. So like anybody can post on Facebook. Your mom, your dad, your grandfather, your grandmother, your niece, your nephew, your neighbor, everybody can post on Facebook. It's not that difficult. You just go on Facebook, you type something, and you've posted. So everybody is a content creator on Facebook. So you're competing literally with everybody on Facebook. So there's a lot of content on Facebook because everybody knows how to post on Facebook. It's not rocket science. You just press post and you're done. So on Instagram it gets a little bit more difficult because now all of a sudden you can't just say I like social confoes. You're required to upload a photo. Even if you upload a visual just with text, you still have to know how to do that. And most of the time, you rather upload a photo. So you have to understand how to upload photos, which is not hard, but you have to make the photo first. So the threshold for creating content for Instagram compared to Facebook is already very different.
I think I see where you're going at.
Yeah.
So
Now we
there's
go to yeah. So now
there's
we go
more
to
pressure
TikTok.
to
Now,
creating or
yeah,
posting content, which
exactly. So now we
equals
go to
less
TikTok.
creators and more consumers. So the less supply of created content is propagating faster to more consumers. Uh,
Exactly.
Sorry for the
So no. You've already got it.
analogy on
But for the
on
people who
supply
haven't,
and analogy.
for people who want the finished version of the train of thought on TikTok, like you said, there are less creators. Why are there less creators? Because you go from Facebook where you can just say I like social confos to Instagram putting out actually a photo and putting a caption out to TikTok where you have to have a piece of video, whether the video is created to the TikTok app or you separately upload the video, you're you're gonna have to be able to create video content for enable to post. So on TikTok you have a lot of lurkers, like the biggest percentage of people just watch, and a very small percentage actually puts out content. So the advantage that you have is because there's such a small percentage creating content, that percentage gets seen more, gets through the algorithm better, gets
Yeah, the
an
creator
easier path to growth,
consumer
organic growth.
is like significantly higher.
Until everybody knows how to make video,
Yeah.
which will happen in the next 5 years.
So quick question
Yeah.
from or quick comment from Rajiv. Like TikTok's bandwidth usage per story is like 100 times less than IG. How accurate is this? And uh, since TikTok is more video focused, I would imagine this being more intensive.
So I have no idea how they did it, but there's a lot of technology that goes behind it. And I think if you could only really test it if Instagram would run the same way as TikTok does, which they don't. Because we now think like, yeah, is that true? But I can imagine there's some truth into that because in TikTok, you load a video and it gets loaded and loaded and loaded all over again. So you have to really be efficient with your bandwidth. I do also know that Facebook is quite notorious for uh, lowering the resolution or the quality as well. So, for instance, if I really want to resize a video, like quick resize, and I really want to bring the size down by 75%, I upload a video on Facebook, like private, and then I download the video again, and it's already 75% smaller than it used to be.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, MKBHD did this test on YouTube actually with the compression. He
Yeah.
uploaded,
So the,
downloaded,
so the
and
compression for Facebook is already insane because you had Facebook Zero. I don't know if you remember Facebook Zero
I
in
actually never
Suriname.
heard of it. Like,
So Facebook Zero was an initiative to kind of make Facebook free. So in Suriname, we had Digicel who kind of had Facebook for free for a couple of years, and they were able to do it.
mostly those people with data plans on their phones for free, they could browse. Is that what you mean with free?
No, no, it was like literally free. So you could, without having a data plan, you could browse Facebook for I think 2 or 3 years in Suriname at a certain point. And the reason for that being was these Digicel had a partnership, so the headquarters had a partnership with Facebook Zero, or at least on the Wikipedia of Facebook Zero, Digicel was listed as one of those partners. And Facebook Zero would basically be you get a stripped down version of Facebook, which preloaded images and text. But if you were to want to watch a video, you would have to use data. And in order to enable Facebook Zero, Facebook had to cut down a lot on bandwidth because they were kind of giving the internet away for free. So they had to seriously compress videos and images as well. So Facebook actually is also very well known for data compression. But it's interesting that Rajiv mentioned that the TikTok bandwidth efficiency is even better than Facebook's is. That would be interesting. I think I also read somewhere that a lot of Snapchat's developers were headhunted by TikTok as well.
Yeah, I can I can actually see that. That's basically how big tech works. They
Yeah.
just poach talent from each other. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, pivoting back to the social media conference this year is going to be in person. So I imagine TikTok's going to be a big topic again. So what can people expect, or can you lean into that a bit?
So I don't know if there's going to be a yeah, I think there's at least one local session on TikTok, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be mentioned in other sessions as well. I have to jump into it as well in my session, but there will be definitely be at least one panel with people in Suriname who are already active on TikTok for business to business or business to consumer use. So we have some quite successful uh, people on TikTok in Suriname. Like when we talk about creators, we have a lot of successful creators
Okay.
on TikTok.
When we define successful creators, could you give us more context? Is it following
Successful
count,
is Yeah,
uh,
successful is kind of
money
everybody above 50,000 followers, in my opinion, already has some kind of success. It's whether you've monetized your success or not, whether you've gotten brand deals out of it. If you have like over 50,000 followers on any platform, I mean, even 10,000, like 10,000 is an incredible threshold to have already, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It says something like, for instance, for YouTube, 10,000 is a very important threshold. I think 100,000 is where you get the play button, but 10,000 is already where you're kind of like really in the partner program with YouTube. So I think if you're already at 10,000, that's already a success. And if you're at 50,000 on any platform, that means like you've at least achieved something. Not saying that you're ready for brand deals or to become an influencer or anything like that, but just in measures of understanding how the platform works, you figured it out.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Anything else you want to highlight now to tease for the conference?
Oh yeah, I mean like
Like
we
the previous 2 years have been like virtual. Like
yeah,
what?
so we have virtual, so there are some speakers who are returning to the conference but have only spoken virtually but have never been to Suriname. And I think my favorite speaker, even he's not my favorite speaker just to say like, hey, he's coming to Suriname, but he's like my favorite speaker from the social media marketing world in San Diego is speaking at the social media conference in Suriname this year. So that's already for me like a very big win. And like if there's one session that I feel like everybody should experience at least once, it's gonna be Mark Schaefer's session, definitely.
Yeah, I had a inclination that it would have been Mark Schaefer.
Yeah,
So it's confirmed.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you're gonna get the official announcement on social media on social media Suriname, the social media channels, but I can confirm.
Okay,
And he's not
awesome.
the only one. At
You guys
least
got some
three.
Alpha.
There are at least well, there are four international speakers coming in from the U.S. already. So
Oh,
that's yeah, it's already
that's
that's a lot.
that's an
Yeah,
increase.
yeah.
Awesome. So what else? Any new avenues? I know last year we briefly touched on, the Web3 NFT space through the art space. Is there going to be an expansion on that? How is that development looking on content-wise?
So Mark already has his own coin on Rally. That's one of the platforms that has kind of this tokenized coin system where you can kind of get into like the economics of crypto already. And he's one of the keynote speakers that already is kind of dipping his toes into crypto and Web3. Another speaker that we're finalizing is really specializing now in NFTs, in the NFT space. But I can only disclose it when it's finalized. So there definitely will be some Gen Z stuff that we'll talk about as well, especially Web3 and NFTs. I think we last year we spoke about NFT and art. This year it will be more NFT and marketing. NFT or Web3 and marketing will be the main focus. But yeah, that's something that we'll definitely dive into a little bit more.
Awesome. So lots of
But I
new
think
stuff.
just in general, the selling point should be it's our first in-person
Yeah, in person, I was
conference
about to
in
say,
three
like,
years.
people are
Yeah,
itching
and
to
you just
meet
have to
up.
be there because it will be 2 straight days of just high value. And I mean, the ticket price, um, I don't know if people know what the ticket price of social media marketing world or inbound, like the big conferences that I look at in the US. Ticket prices are between above 1,000 US, 1,500 to 2,000 US. So if you pay a tenth of that, I mean, that's like, and what you get in return,
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
it's
And
proportional.
even if you just take the community pass, you don't get the recordings, you don't get food every day. I know food is important, but hey, like if if you're low on cash, you need to bootstrap. Just take the community pass. The community pass now is going for, I think, a little over $50, which is 1,000 SRD. And trust me, you cannot get a training or one-on-one training session with me for that kind of money. So basically, you're getting a conference where at least 20 speakers will be speaking for an amount lower than what you would have to pay me to get a one-on-one session with me. Just to put it into perspective.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
bang for buck, I would say.
yeah,
All right, and
definitely.
this is gonna be October 27th and 28th.
27, 28. Yeah.
So,
So are you going to be back as part of the crew? Can
uh,
we like promote you now to a more important role?
well, I don't know. We haven't opened the conversation, so you're opening the
Okay.
conversation here in
Yeah, I'm
public.
open it publicly. So yeah, so people, if you're joining, you will definitely see Diego as well. He will have his own fan section. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
But
so I cannot leave the country in October. Got
yeah,
it.
so make sure you're free as well. And
No, no.
another thing that's interesting is that it's also interesting just to come to Suriname in that period because there's a Suriname Jazz Festival happening that
Hmm.
weekend. And the day after our conference in Turarica, there's the Quota Men's Cookout as well, which means like
Uh,
if
it's
you
a
need
good.
a long weekend to come to Suriname to enjoy multiple things.
It's a great
Uh,
alignment of events
yeah,
from
exactly.
knowledge to entertainment to great food
The food.
and
Yeah,
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 amazing food. You
yeah.
awesome, got it. I think we've covered some pretty cool stuff here. I think it's time to close it up this episode with some, over unders.
Oh yeah.
So I think looking at the time, I think we can do three each if you do three quick ones.
Okay. So you want me to go first?
Yeah, kick us off.
Okay. Social media challenges.
Um, I would place social media challenges a bit more on the underrated side now. I actually have not seen a good challenge in quite a few years, actually. Even,
What was the last one that kind of globally? Was it the ALS challenge, the uh, water bucket challenge, or was the mannequin challenge after that?
I think the ice bucket challenge, that's the most vivid one I could remember that's recent. But yeah, I would place social media challenges underrated now because I haven't seen a good one in years. So either people got boring or people it just got so normalized that you know uh, people don't
Hard. It's
challenge each
it's
other.
hard to reach everyone. Like the challenges are there, but they don't reach everyone anymore.
True, the algorithm has screwed things up. Fair point. All right. Overrated, underrated TV commercials in this time of social media.
So, are you talking about TV commercials on TV or the production of TV commercials?
The production of TV commercials.
Oh, yeah, I still think that's properly rated.
Properly rated?
Yeah, I think it's properly rated. I think it's a little overrated as into understanding like how much impact it still has on television. Aside for if you're making the commercial for the Super Bowl, and um, it's a little bit underrated on still how important like good quality content. Like even if you make the best micro content, it's just not as good as a Google television commercial. Like the television commercial is like the epicenter of the highest marketing creativity there is. Like there is no one social media post that outdoes a television commercial. The television commercial, if your television commercial gets less response than a meme on social media, you're screwed because you've wasted a big pile of money on something that could have been just a meme.
Yeah, yeah.
But but if you really go all out on your television commercial, the production of it, yeah, definitely, it's it's still the highest achievable level of creative of commercial creation, if you ask me.
Okay.
Fair point. Fair point by Modev. Yeah, social media challenges are now converted to TikTok trends. That's true. So which brings me to the next question, which is overrated, underrated, dancing on TikTok.
This is I know a lot of people consume that content, and no offense to you if you enjoy that mindlessly, but for me it's overrated. Personally, for me, as in my type of entertainment, yeah, it's overrated. But I can understand the people who find enjoyment and validation through it. But for me personally, it's way overrated. All right. Next one, Canva.
It's hard to call Canva underrated. It's hard. Um, there are several use cases where it's still underrated.
Canva has
Uh,
grown tremendously since.
Canva video, Canva video is insane. First of all, it's insane. Um, but I can't call it underrated. You have to imagine, like, what's your history with Canva? How long have you been using Canva?
I've
Have you
actually
used
by
Canva or do you still use Photoshop
I
for
still use
everything?
Photoshop, but I actually made an account on Canva before it went public. Like, I think Melanie Perkins was still in conversations with some VCs or on a management. So I was in the early beta phase of Canva. So I've seen the changes it went through. I've never actively used it, but now I am considering like looking at how it has evolved over the past 2 3 years. I can see it as a huge time saver, and the amount of resources it has, even for the free version. Uh, saves themes. People, I think they just introduced themes now, so you can make separate
Oh, it's been there for a while.
profiles,
Yeah, it's
everything.
been there for a while. It's
Yeah.
really easy to use. It's
So
I think that's basically the drag and drop easy to use. If as long as you don't have to work with layers, if you have to work with layers, oh,
yeah, it
Photoshop
is
is
good.
so much better.
But if you have a basic understanding of design and how what good design looks like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, definitely,
yeah,
definitely, definitely, definitely. It's just, yeah, for me personally. So I've been with Canva since, I think, Guy Kawasaki. The reason why I
yeah,
was already using it, but Guy Kawasaki was chief evangelist, and I've been
exactly.
following Guy Kawasaki for quite some time. So that's kind of my. And then I started using it as
But when I
well.
saw that the relationship, I was like, okay, I got to look into this.
Yeah. So that's where it started out for me. Okay, now I lost my train of thought for my last over under, which was gonna be a really fun one. I kind of do blank. I forgot my last over under.
Okay, while you think of it, I'll throw in a curveball: fast fashion and social media, or on
Sorry,
social
what?
media. Fast fashion in the social media context.
I have no idea what we're talking about. Wow,
Fast
I'm getting
fashion,
old.
like in the Netherlands, you have seasonal fashion, but they make styles for like a month or two, and then they recycle or redo something else to make a new trend.
Yeah, for me that's over commercialization, and I have to be careful with that because I have friends and family in the fields of fashion, but I still feel in some cases it goes a little bit too far. And just so you know, I almost jumped into that trend. I side I put it aside because of the book, but I was looking at ways to have like a TikTok style T-shirt that changes color when you're in the sun and when you're out of the sun. So I was looking at that, but I decided like, okay, that's something that uh, probably is a next step or we do after because it was taking too much time for me to be to do personally. Now I'm really upset that I forgot about the last overrated, underrated. But let's keep it easy. Um, Mr. Beast's production studio.
I don't even think we can give that a rating. It is in a category of its own. As in, if you haven't seen it, just Google Mr. Beast tour. There's other channels that don't tour. It's just insane the amount of money. They actually lose money on the production now of some sets just to make a point or video. He's at that stage in his wealth and career that he can just,
And basically, it's kind of rivaling Warner Brothers. It's gonna be at a certain point that you're gonna able to do a paid tour of the Mr. Beast studio. I mean, we're definitely somewhere getting to that point. And
yeah,
I think it's interesting. It started off with PewDiePie being bigger than corporations, like complete corporations, when it comes to impact. And the way Jimmy has grown in the past 3 years, it's insane. It's insane. It's complete insanity because he's
Mm.
almost past PewDiePie already, like in subscribers.
Yeah,
Like
and is
yeah,
is PewDiePie still active? I haven't
yeah.
seen.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or the algorithm phased me out of PewDiePie's
No, I
videos.
think well the only PewDiePie videos I see now are I think Luai or the Reddit kind of videos or reaction videos. I think
Yeah,
I only get to see reaction videos from PewDiePie now. But and also Mr. Beast only puts out once a month, and
yeah.
that
The
makes it
the posting schedule just changed drastically as well.
yeah. So it's getting to this insane production. It's really like creating, but also fast-paced videos. Like I also watch Sidemen, for instance, where like if it's a travel episode, um, it can go on for like 2 hours, like 1.5, 2 hours. Whereas Mr. Beast is like this fast pace. Okay, move on to the next. Okay, move on to the next. Okay, and within 15 minutes you're done, and you're like, wait, that was 15 minutes of video that would have cost $2 million. Like it's insane that $2 million just goes into a 15 minute video. It completely has changed. Yeah, I always speak of the fact that Will Smith and Jason Derulo get together for a day with a camera team and a crew of like 10 people just to film TikToks. And then you
Yeah,
get to the level where Mr. Beast buys $1 million studio to create YouTube videos. It's like we're getting to that point where, and people are not really, like, especially people from older generations, are not really yet understanding the impact of what this is doing, which is another reason I'm writing this book as well.
I was
So these
about to
are
say
definitely
this.
thinking, these are definitely things that I do want to talk about to put things into perspective.
Awesome. So we want to read that very soon. Um, do we have a release date
No,
this year?
no, we're not gonna disclose anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
But if you're coming, if you're joining us for the social media conference Suriname, you will be bound to hear about it.
yeah, there's alpha to be
Yeah.
learned there.
So if
Anyways,
you, if it's not, it's a free plug, but if you haven't already, make sure to check out socialmedia.sr because the website is live, has gone live this week. So
definitely worth it. If
socialmedia.sr,
this year, I repeat,
just
please.
check through it, and you have to be there. If you live in Suriname, you have to be there. If you're watching outside of Suriname and you want to be there,
You
just
just
let
fly
me know.
over.
Yeah, just fly over because it's gonna be worth it as well. And this year is the first year that every session, every time slot has at least one session in English to make sure that international participants can participate as well.
Awesome. With
Yeah,
that being said, thanks for tuning in. We are getting a rhythm back up on Social Convos. So we will be back next week with a fresh new episode. And with that being said, the other episodes will be slowly rolled out over this week as the post-production pipeline has been set up finally again. So yeah, we're getting there. With
awesome.
that being said, Jean-Luc, close us off.
This was Social Confoes. See you back next week, same place, same time. Bye bye.